Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jai.
We are reading from the Adi Lila, chapter 1, and I believe we read 47 last week. So we continue with verse number 48, which is actually a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the special feature of the Chaitanya Caritamrita, and that is why it is considered such an exalted Vaishnava literature. There are many references and quotations from both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a quotation from the 11th chapter. Naivo payantya pachitim kavayas tavesha brahma yusapi kritam ridha muda smaranta yontar bahistanu britam asubham vidhunvan acharya chai chaitya vashup vapusha swagatyam enakti. Translation and short purport. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. Purport. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29-6 was spoken by Sri Uddhava after he heard from Sri Krishna all necessary instructions about yoga. Text 49. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. So we just heard a text from Bhagavatam, now from Bhagavad Gita. Just happens like this. Translation and also purport. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. This verse of Bhagavad Gita 10:10 clearly states that Govinda Dev instructs his bona fide devotee. The Lord declares that by enlightenment in theistic knowledge, he awards attachment for him to those who constantly engage in his transcendental loving service. Attachment. That is one of the higher levels in the whole process of bhakti, isn't it? Asakti. Nista. Ruchi, asakti, attachment. Attachment for rising early in the morning. Not so easy. we are attached to the opposite. We cannot live without attachment. This awakening of divine consciousness enthralls a devotee, who thus relishes his eternal transcendental mellow. Such an awakening is awarded only to those convinced by devotional service about the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead. See, so if we are still lacking in attachment, it means we're not yet convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They know that the Supreme Truth, the all-spiritual and all-powerful person, is one without a second and has fully transcendental senses. He is the fountainhead of all emanations. Such pure devotees, always merged in knowledge of Krishna and absorbed in Krishna consciousness, exchange thoughts and realizations as great scientists exchange their views and discuss the results of research in scientific academies. Such exchanges of thoughts in regard to Krishna give pleasure to the Lord, who therefore favors such devotees with all enlightenment. Text 50. Yatha brahmane bhagavan swayam upadishya nubhavitavan. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, taught Brahma and made him self-realized. Purport. The English maxim that God helps those who help themselves is also applicable in the transcendental realm. There are many instances in revealed scriptures of the personality of Godhead's acting as the spiritual master from within. He was the spiritual master who instructed Brahma, the original living being, in the cosmic creation. When Brahma was first created, he could not apply his creative energy to arrange the cosmic situation. At first, there was only sound vibrating the word tapa, which indicates the acceptance of hardships for spiritual realization. Refraining from sensual enjoyment, one should voluntarily accept all sorts of difficulty for spiritual realization. This is called tapasya. An enjoyer of the senses can never realize God, godliness, or the science of theistic knowledge. Thus, when Brahma, initiated by Sri Krishna by the sound vibration tapa, engaged himself in acts of austerity by the pleasure of Vishnu, he was able to visualize the transcendental world, Sri Vaikuntha, through transcendental realization. Modern science can communicate using material discoveries such as radio, television, and computers, but the science invoked by the austerities of Sri Brahma the original father of mankind was still more subtle. In time, material scientists may also know how we can communicate with the Vaikuntha world. Lord Brahma inquired about the potency of the Supreme Lord, and the personality of Godhead answered his inquiry in the following 6 consecutive statements. These instructions, which are reproduced in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 2, chapter 9, text 31 to 36, were imparted by the personality of Godhead acting as the Supreme Spiritual Master. So in the purport, Prabhupada mentions, in time, material scientists may also know how we can communicate with the Vaikuntha world. Anyone know how this will be?
6.
When they become devotees.
I was going to say 6G.
Huh?
I was going to say 6G or 7G. So
Okay.
5G.
No, it will not. It will not be through material mechanism. Prabhupada used to say. Yeah, his first small book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. Material planets, that is one thing. Spiritual planets, that is another dimension. Yeah. Sound. Yeah. It's a reminder for all of us how sound vibration is the means by which we are meant to connect with the world of transcendence through transcendental sound, spiritual sound. And again, we are reminded that one of the important, we can say, prerequisites is a performance or voluntary acceptance of tapa, austerities. Yeah. By voluntary restraint, then yeah, this is also mentioned here. The result of our humble attempt or endeavor, just like parents when they have a small child still just about to walk. The child will not immediately walk. It will take some time, some days. Depends. But as a child, because it's natural for him at some point to want to get up and actually walk alone. But so he will be encouraged by the parents. So in other words, when we make an effort, Krishna becomes pleased, and by Krishna being pleased, he favors that individual, and ultimately actually he reveals himself to such a devotee. 6 instructions are being referred to here. So text number 51. Jnanam parama guhyam me yadvigyana samanvitam saha sarahasyam tad angam cha grihana gaditam maya. Translation. Please hear attentively what I shall speak to you. For transcendental knowledge about me is not only scientific, but also full of mysteries. Purport. Transcendental knowledge of Sri Krishna is deeper than the impersonal knowledge of Brahman, for it includes knowledge of not only his form and personality, but also everything else related to him. There is nothing in existence not related with Sri Krishna. In a sense, there is nothing but Sri Krishna, and yet nothing is Sri Krishna save and except his primeval personality. This knowledge constitutes a complete transcendental science, and Vishnu wanted to give Brahmaji a full knowledge about that science. The mystery of this knowledge culminates in personal attachment to the Lord, with a resulting effect of detachment from anything non-Krishna. There are 9 alternative transcendental means to attain this stage: hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, assisting, fraternizing with the Lord, and sacrificing everything for him. These are different parts of the same devotional service, which is full of transcendental mystery. The Lord said to Brahma that since he was pleased with him, by his grace, by the Lord's grace, the mystery was being revealed. Text 52. Yavan aham yata bhavo yadrupa guna karmakaha tathaiva tattva vijnanam astu te mad anugrahat. By my causeless mercy, be enlightened in truth about my personality, manifestations, qualities, and pastimes. Report. The transcendental personal forms of the Lord are a mystery, and the symptoms of these forms are absolutely different from anything made of mundane elements, are also mysterious. The innumerable forms of the Lord, such as Shamasundar, Narayana, Rama, and Gaurasundar, the colors of these forms, white, red, yellow, cloud-like Shama, and others, his qualities as the responsive personality of Godhead to pure devotees, and as impersonal Brahman to dry speculators, his uncommon activities like lifting Govardhan Hill, marrying more than 16,000 queens at Dwarka, and entering the rasa dance with the damsels of Braja, expanding himself in as many forms as there were damsels in the dance. These and innumerable other uncommon acts and attributes are all mysteries, one aspect of which is presented in the scientific knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is read and adored all over the world by all classes of scholars, with as many interpretations as there are empiric philosophers. The truth of these mysteries was revealed to Brahma by a descending process without the help of the ascending one. His mercy descends to a devotee like Brahma, and through Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, from Vyasadeva to Shukadeva, and so on, in the bona fide chain of disciplic succession. We cannot discover the mysteries of the Lord by our mundane endeavors. They are only revealed by His grace to the proper devotees. These mysteries are gradually disclosed to the various grades of devotees in proportion to the gradual development of their service attitude. In other words, impersonalists who depend upon the strength of their poor fund of knowledge and morbid speculative habits without submission and service in the form of hearing, chanting, and the others mentioned above, cannot penetrate to the mysterious region of transcendence, where the supreme truth is a transcendental person, free from all tinges of the material elements. Discovering the mystery of the Lord eliminates the impersonal feature realized by common spiritualists who are merely trying to enter the spiritual region from the mundane platform. So this is nicely explained here by Srila Prabhupada. The only way to acquire not just ordinary knowledge. There's a very big difference between knowledge defined as jnanam and realized knowledge, vijnanam, isn't it? From jnanam to vijnanam, it is not dependent simply on our individual personal effort. It is solely depending on the grace or the mercy of Krishna, just like it is mentioned here. Because the subject matter is as Krishna explains actually in the Bhagavad Gita, Rahasyam. It is very mysterious, very confidential, the most mysterious. Yeah. Modern, ordinary, materialistic people cannot understand this method or this process of acquiring knowledge. But it is very fundamental for those who are actual practitioners of spiritual life. What Prabhupada is referring to here in terms of the descending process. And again we are reminded what is another important, essential, not only important, but essential factor. What is also an essential factor? Hearing is being stressed. What else? Performance, accepting, voluntarily accepting tapasya. And then the mercy of Krishna. And then one aspect that Prabhupada is again underlining. What will be attracting Krishna? Humility. Yes. Prabhupada makes reference to that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, where humility is the first prerequisite. Pranipat, tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Yeah. So service attitude. Service attitude is something that we cannot imitate. It must manifest in a natural and spontaneous way. And it may not immediately manifest because it is it is a very we could say advanced level. This this conducive service attitude, and therefore until it does manifest, one needs to, as our acharyas instruct, one needs to be very regulated in one's activities. One needs to be all of the guidelines that are given in what Srila Rupa Goswami refers to in his Nectar of Devotion, the level of sadhana. Before coming to the platform of spontaneous attachment or spontaneous attraction or spontaneous taste, spontaneous taste for performing our activities, spontaneous taste for chanting the holy name, spontaneous taste for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. There must be that preliminary level of sadhana bhakti. So that is very nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami, and therefore performance of tasya falls in that category as well. The voluntary acceptance of regulation. The more we understand the process, the more we have faith in the process, actually. Therefore, that beginning prerequisite of Shraddha is something that needs to continue to grow. Shraddha, faith, firm faith, strong conviction in the devotional process, in the spiritual process of devotion, because that is the key factor that is being referred to here. So some additional verses will be, well, the next text is having a long purport, so I will not read it today. So any questions? Yes?
Regarding Navadvita Bhakti,
Yes.
to give some more insight, like especially Palasevanam and Archanam and Darshanam, these are all very related. Somewhat, these
What exactly the question?
like and all the Navadvita Bhakti, somewhat like, and especially small difference between Archanam, Palasevanam and Darshanam. They're all like similar.
What is the difference?
Light will the ashram and arsinam and Varnasrama, they are all similar. Then we made it one category.
Many of those. So the question is, some of these 9 practices of devotional service that we hear about, beginning with Sravanam Kirtanam all the way to Atma Nivedanam, seem to be similar. There will be some, just like Atma Nivedanam includes all the previous activities, isn't it? So there will be some overlapping, but each one has their particular, we could say, a quality. And we read also in the Nectar of Devotion how for each of these activities there is a particular personality who has especially exemplified that particular service or that particular activity. So by remembering those particular individuals, like Sravanam, Kirtanam, so Sravanam is referred to as Parikshit Maharaj, who heard attentively for 7 days, and Shukadeva Goswami was speaking. So each of these activities, they are interconnected, but simultaneously they are very unique in their nature. So one would have to look at each one of them maybe more closely to know where there might be overlapping or whatnot. So Prabhupada explains that actually a devotee, it's quite natural. One may be more attracted to one particular activity. One can perform either 1, 2, 3, or all 9 activities. But any one of these activities, as we hear from our acharyas, is sufficient for one to completely become purified and therefore become qualified to go back to the spiritual world. So even though there are some similar or possibly overlapping of some of these activities, it's not a problem, and ultimately they complement one another. Sravanam very much goes in line with Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. When we chant the holy name, we also hear the holy name. Anything else? Jai Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jai.
Jai Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki
Jai.